Time continues its eternal march, the flames burning over the time, with the light continuing its faithful dance with the night. Our darling shadow trains away with very little else to do with her life. The Empire's brightest light continuing through each day's maze of classes and work, always putting her best foot forward. Lyra sits now in her office with an envelope torn open on her desk as it topples dangerously close to the edge. Its contents are the important part. It carries a simple and direct message which is hardly a surprise to anyone, with previous whispers foreshadowing such outcomes. Where life exists, so much death. Two sides of a scale eternally locked in their shifting weights, yet one always left, even by fate's design. Usually it wouldn't be this complicated, however. Clouds block the sun outside despite a stray beam still managing to hit her window placed behind a desk. She sits with her back to it most days, the single ray aiming over her shoulder to illuminate the first word in growing intensity. It's folded away, Lyra rising from her seat for a moment to pace her rather comfortable office. Heels only click against hard wood for a moment before finding the plush red carpet leading to her desk from the door, and muffled footsteps trace their usual route over floral embroidery on the rug's edge. It's her private hallway, the area of the palace forbidden to any without her approval, which affords her such luxuries as this pacing without disturbance. Even the cleaning team has to pass her judgment. One of them broke a frame of hers and another tried to steal from her simply for the thrill. Maybe she would pity them if the money was needed, if the palace wage didn't cover their living costs. Yet they confessed it was purely because it was shiny and she's rich enough not to miss it. Off topic, once again. These hallways are important to Lyra, a space no noble is able to pull rank to gain access to, maybe minus her family. Now, a few have tried, only to meet failure and the threatening point of a guard's blade before polite warnings to return when she is accepting company, or to simply never approach again. Rooms for her ladies in waiting tend to fill the hallways up towards the private hall, never quite sitting on the main ones. The room itself is large, glass doors at one wall, then opening further to a balcony lined with flowering vines cared for by herself and mainly the natural weather. Gardeners see occasional invites to maintain their appearance, though only when someone else is present. The glass doors are framed by bookshelves, stocked high by files and her old favourites in reach, next to maps and summarised archives of relevant notes. Her window is on another wall, tipping light through the room with a heavy red curtains pulled to either side on any nicer day. The sun on her back is often warm, most days, with a stronger glow making work easy. Well, when it isn't mocking the first word she'd rather ignore right now. Her other wall has a spare couch, the same deep red fabric covering the item, with a low coffee table sat ahead of him. Any guests welcomed into her private space may use it, more commonly her aide, yet she'll also spare lunch there when work piles high on her desk. Heels then click along the wooden floor once more, dampening as she transitions to the carpet before echoing back to the wood in a pattern familiar to herself. The letter waits on the desk, a black seal sat calmly on the envelope still. To the Imperial family. We regret to inform you that, as of this morning, the holder of the dark charm, Sir Damien, has passed due to illness. As of sending this, the charm is yet to continue in its cycle, locating the new holder as the family are arranging funeral rites. Whilst this news may be tragic, we are currently monitoring the status of the charm. It is stable, sat at the heart of the scale, and has not yet revealed itself from the midst. Local casters are currently having audiences with it, observing this unfortunate occasion and many conducting the trials for the charm's acceptance. None have yet succeeded or had any form of reaction. We will keep you company with the current news should this change. Signed, the Darkest Champion of Peace. Now, the letter does go on. It goes on for quite a bit. I'm simply sparing you the condensed version that doesn't detail the fanfare over such developments and the directionless paranoia that the charm won't settle before its corruption begins. Such a role should know that the balance is set for now, lingering in the aftermath of the previous holder before it locates their next match. Only after that such worries come into play with imbalance and... oh. I may have said a bit too much for now. Oh well. It has been coming. Most people can tell when a charm is preparing to continue on, the user being the first to know by dreams and just normal feelings. It's an eerie experience for them, that's certain. Though holding the letter speaking with such formality is almost jarring. Another life is drawn to close, yet the letter treats the charm as the relevant matter, half of the page detailing where it is now and how it is without holder. Now, I won't lie to you, Lyra is horrified by this. She's seen paperwork before. Old letters of the royal family would send out to families of fallen soldiers that, thankfully, haven't been used in years. Yet, to receive one of another life, of a man she's met multiple times, it's unusual for her. Emotions usually have no place behind a desk, yet they always seep into the cracks. So, she doesn't face it right away. Her feet have paced the room 3 times today, with a pen commonly failing after rereading the near-clinical words. Part of her thanks early distractions, and lines of questioning she could send the other women on. Today she had 2 able to follow her, the others already being told they wouldn't be needed for the day's lack of activity. Both of the 2 present had to gather information Lyra would need for later, both things worthy of her rank and theirs, whilst her attendant had to see to lunch preparations before the letter came in. Yes, one could have helped with this. She can set it aside until they return. It's not bad if she hands this to another to write for her and signs it after. Despite this, Lyra doesn't allow that option to exist beyond a fleeting thought. The paper is still left on the desk, glaring at her through its words. A deep breath relaxes her shoulders, rights her postures and fixes her focus. It stills her hand with practiced motions, pulling a new sheet from a stack kept in her second drawer down, the pen picked up from its resting place against the envelope. A response has to be written. Lunch will be brought up soon. Her aide will return with news shortly regarding the inquiry. Later, we'll see her review the trade routes from the shores, issues rising with the mountains as of late too. She should also send a letter to Damien's family. They deserve something to acknowledge the life he lived, not only as a charm holder. The importance of his role was with his charm, but he had a life beyond that the Empire merely overlooks. She'll see to it. She has to. Nyx isn't having a dull day either. In the mountains, nothing more than a distant horizon beyond the capital from a window in the palace. As the sun sets over the tips of the forest, silver light cascading through the partial canopy towering overhead, she continues to spiral through each rehearsed step with more force striking out against an invisible enemy. No one is there, that much is clear, yet she goes through each motion with a sight set in stone. The bracelet stolen today wasn't enough. As with the bags of trinkets Nyx also brought home, hoping to simply impress Arden and his council. If not for food, at least for an easier night. Though it wasn't the case. It's hardly the case. Here she goes now, spinning in a silent dance at the lake's edge, a basin of water held further up the mountain, with a waterfall supplying a continuous store of clean water as another exit sits across the clearing. By light, the other teams would want the area, though night abandons it. It's Nyx's at night, as no one roams this far from the base's entrance under the moon's canopy. She won't complain. I mean, hey, she isn't welcome at home tonight, so she can train out here. It's not even that cold if she can convince herself of the fact. Dark mist rises from the ground, shattering the tree's uniform shade and raising itself from the ground with little care. The balance shifts to compensate, flecks of unnaturally silver light replacing the pockets created despite no natural path to explain it. Give and take. The new shard lifts itself higher, an inky blob shifting and dripping like stained water dipped into the abyss of Nyx's eye. A simple twist of her hand pulls at the edge, spiraling the form further as the weight shifts towards her. It rumbles with this tune lying below her skin, the map of constellations softly glowing beneath her cloak as her arms remain exposed. Her shirt has always had shorter sleeves, the type that flow with her motion, yet never get in her way or restrict her line of work. Her training usually discards the overskirt, a simple tie and accessory that isn't wise for her work, yet remains one of her favourites. But what can she say? She likes the way it fans with her spins, and the material barely hinders her fights, and is only an issue if she has to climb, which is already suspicious in the city. If anyone asks, she doesn't prefer it. She only wears it due to Rosen and their lessons. She's paying little attention as the dark blob continues its shifting, now taking on the form of a sharper point with a new split directing the abyss into two routes. Both form a blade. It's child's play, rather literally for Nyx, but it is something a child would be able to learn just by messing around long enough. Nyx herself learnt this under Arden in one of her earlier lessons, probably the second or third following basic motions, yet something usually directed away from younger students. Both parts join in her dance, deadly strikes painlessly slicing through the air with her arms guiding the motion each makes. A shift disturbs the night by her fifth repetition, the wind picking up around the clearing, actually directing itself in a barrier shoving any creature or person trying to approach further into the dirt down the hill. It howls, screaming in rage after mere seconds. The only disturbance to touch the clearing is the ripple in the lake. A soft wave repeats each iteration grows in size, rising further up the bank than the last. Not good. It causes a slight pause for Nyx, the shadow melting back to their regular placement as she monitors a growing storm. There hadn't been indicators of this sooner. The sky was clouded most of the day, yes, but not the type of clouds warning of a storm. It's why she came up here, not heading across to the thicker canopy where there would be slightly more cover from the elements, or an unclaved cave she could duck into for the night. Trees bend, vines of leaves further accenting a wall around the lake, as bushes grow to cover Nyx from sight, the plants by the pond growing before our very eyes. Flowers bloom out of season, roots break the earth as subtle channels split at the banks, creating new, tiny streams reaching towards her. In all of this, her cloak sits at the side, untouched by the elements, only nudged closer to Nyx by a bold root before it curls a safe nest around it. Nothing stops. Lights float from the waves, small orbs no larger than a firefly rise to the sky, called by the stars as they continue to multiply and split apart. They rain softly once they climb too high, never breaking the tree line further obscured by the branches on leaves weaving themselves together tighter than they had been yesterday. Those nearest the water begin to shelter the edges of the lake, regardless of the weight it shifts, yet tying themselves tight enough that none fall. In all of this, a soft fire lights a ring around the lake, not harming the growing plants or limiting the water. No, the waves only roll over the new sparks, simply retreating and leaving them untouched as the embers continue in their dance. Each new channel carved between the earth further welcomes a flame, slowly climbing towards Nyx. All bend towards her or the lake. She notices as such, yet makes no move to fight the natural shield. Or is it a shield if this wishes to trap her here? If it's a cage, it will break eventually. She can't report this until morning, but at least she can outrun whichever organisation is causing this in the woods. Training can't break the balance this much. Only the shadows remain in tune, lying and shifting to match each motion made across the dimly lit space. It has to be some sort of rival from Arden, mistaking his attention for Care, trying to lower her guard. They'll be hiding somewhere nearby. The trees probably masking their motions to stir the world into such unrest with no shadowcaster to complete the joke. At least, that's what Nyx suspects. In all of it, a dark light rises, mist spiralling and ebbing away from something silver glinting at its heart. I know that's a little contradictory. Dark and light? I can explain it a little more. It's black shifting with a soft glow bordering the item in the middle of a darker cloud. A breeze carries it towards Nyx, her form pulling away from the newly approaching threat with her backup blade drawn from her side. Her holder sits under her skirt most of the time since the metal blade won't fail her as casting may. Besides, she can't pull any shade from the ground to her will. It won't bend. She tries, spiraling the blade as a channel, hoping to rise the darkness into a wave of force. A foot meets the ground and no spikes rise to meet her foe, if it can be called that. But the gleam of metal can't be swayed by the wills of others. Only the highest trained earthcasters can shift refined weaponry. Silver grows as the curtains part. Black flames flicker out, yet wait patiently before the cast-out girl. Anyone knows what this is, at least anyone who has been around civilization in the last thousands of years since the gods fell. A silver charm sits on the end of a chain, the moon purely decorative, yet the suspended crystal being the value of the necklace. It's one no thief could ever steal, something people only dream of having for remarkable making alone. Floating in the heart of the crescent moon, a purple crystal shifts and moves with a marbling of pure darkness. One moment it is black, soulless and deep where no light reaches, and the next it remains a dark blue, light seeping from the purple on its other half. It's one of a set, the darkness of a set balancing the fibres sewn across the world, the very ones allowing her to train as she had been. It waits, floating up and down slowly yet rhythmically, as if assessing the girl it's appeared before. The charm holder's responsibility is hardly spoken of beyond the rituals and traditions. Most live their normal life, keeping from the spotlight where they wish, yet get called on without the ability to refuse. The charm alone is a symbol. Nyx's mind swirls. Currently, it would be a tsunami of questions and doubts that she doesn't want to face just yet. To look inside would be overwhelming, a storm at a speed which we couldn't keep up with, as an unrest takes over each corner with sharp claws coiling further around each sense. Externally, the blade remains raised and trained on the charm itself, waiting with a precision glared on the crystal itself. It leaps closer, jolting on its own cloud before it passes the blade's directionless strike, missing the heart, losing the black flames, and falling to the ground before her foot, with nothing more than a soft, light clink of the metal chain meeting itself in the grass. She can turn away. Leave it there for someone else to find and do whatever they want with, the hope suffocating any word she has to offer before logic can react. The charm won't be moved by another. It won't allow it. Yet it would be worth her return to the base tonight. Food, even if she's late, and she could find something lying around the lower hallways by her room to make a fire, if her room is still off limits. Okay, she lied. It's a little cold. Especially with the added storm still raging above her senses, yet gradually slowing. Upon contact, the crystal hums, a tune resonating below Nyx's skin with the cold chain vanishing from her hold. It only appears moments later on her neck. The channels below her veins sing with a new current, a new strength waiting for use. Each ticking second settles the energy as the two songs become one, woven together with notes blending subtly to make a new harmony comforting the edges of her thoughts. Does Arden actually have to know? No, the old user was meant to be alive. Sure, whispers may have spread around illness that's been going around for months, yet his death can't have come so soon. That would travel slower. The important would get their information before the people, as he had lived halfway across the Empire. Yet here the charm is. The symbol of the balance rests lightly on her neck, just in view for all to see as the clearing returns to their normal state. Water calms, the winds return to a soft breeze. Implications remain obvious to Nyx, the stories repeating over in her mind. A qualified, kind old man has likely passed. The charm sits as proof of that, as it left his side. It's stable enough to find the next, as time would have passed since it did. She can't keep it on her neck. She won't keep it open for all to see, just to eye greedily like a tool when it sits so deeply with her. What would Arden say? He'd want her to give it up, to refuse the opportunity none before her has managed to shed. Stories tell of a person who tried. They tried until their final breath in bed with the charm at their side. Arden would flip, disobedience being the charge, or disloyalty. The cost of each day would rise, and his tolerance dipped. She can't, okay? He can't see the crystal. It listens to her, respects her wish as the charm lacks a clasp to open. It chooses a user, sits with them. This is hers now until death, always remaining close or at the edge of her sense should tales be believed. With a dark flash, it secures itself around a spare loop on her belt, swaying to her movement until a more effective answer reveals itself. A pouch, maybe? Or a pocket could be sewn into a cloak, like those that tie under her skirt. She's got time to work it out. If it weren't for the glowing of the crystal or slim silver chain delicately looped together, she could have tucked it below her neckline and left it at that. Nothing for her will ever be that simple, though. Especially not now. not with a fraction of the balance hanging. A pouch, maybe? Or a pocket could be sewn into a cloak, like those that tie under her skirt. She's got time to work it out. If it weren't for the glowing of the crystal or slim silver chain delicately looped together, she could have tucked it below her neckline and left it at that. Nothing for her will ever be that simple, though. Especially not now. Not with a fraction of the balance hanging at her side. Hey everybody. I hope you've enjoyed part 3, and I hope you are enjoying the story so far. That is all for today. I hope you have a wonderful day, and feel free to stick around for the next part. And that is all I have to say. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.